Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 2 through 7. Too many verses, so I'm just going to read the translation. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma, or Brahaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire. And one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grains should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishvadev. And one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as the Ashvini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvashi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva, and if one desires good marital relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. Purport. Long list, huh? Lots of wants. There are different modes of worship for different persons desiring success in particular subjects. The conditioned soul, living within the purview of the material world, cannot be an expert in every type of materially enjoyable asset, but one can have considerable influence over a particular matter by worshiping a particular demigod, as mentioned above. Ravana was made very powerful man by worshiping Lord Shiva, and he used to offer severed heads to please Lord Shiva. He became so powerful by the grace of Lord Shiva that all the demigods were afraid of him until he at last challenged the personality of Godhead, Sri Ramachandra, and thus ruined himself. In other words, all such persons who aspire after gaining some or all of the material objects of enjoyment or the gross materialistic persons are on the whole less intelligent, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:20. It is said there that those who are bereft of all good sense, or those whose intelligence is withdrawn by the deluding energy of Maya, aspire to achieve all sorts of material enjoyment in life by pleasing various demigods, or by advancing in material civilization under the heading of scientific progress. The real problem of life in the material world is to solve the question of birth, death, old age, and disease. No one wants to change his birthright. No one wants to meet death. No one wants to be old or invalid, and no one wants diseases. But these problems are solved neither by the grace of any demigod nor by the so-called advancement of material science. In the Bhagavad Gita, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, such less intelligent persons have been described as devoid of all good sense. Shukadeva Goswami said that out of the 8,400,000 species of living entities, the human form of life is rare and valuable. And out of those rare human beings, those who are conscious of the material problems are still rarer, and still more rare persons are those who are conscious of the value of Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains the messages of the Lord and his pure devotees. Death is inevitable for everyone, intelligent or foolish. But Parikshit Maharaj has been addressed by the Goswami, that's Shukadev, as the Manishi, the man of highly developed mind, because at the time of death, he left all material enjoyment and completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing his messages, the Lord's messages, from the right person, Shukadeva Goswami. But aspirations for material enjoyment by endeavoring persons are condemned. Such aspirations are something like the imagination of the degraded human society. The intoxication of the degraded human society. Intelligent persons should try to avoid these aspirations and seek instead the permanent life by returning home back to Godhead. So these 6 verses are, in one sense, just reaffirming the previous verse. The previous verse is where Shukadeva Goswami is expressing, I've already given an answer to your question. And what's that highest aim of life? What should one who is about to die, what should they aspire for, hear, chant, remember, etc.? So he's already answered from the first 2 chapters, and now here's just reaffirming. Now the verse itself does not, the only explicit reference to worship of the personality of Godhead is one who desires tangible fame, but tangible anything. Tangible meaning it's substantial, it's real, it's not imaginary, but tangible. Of substance. So anyone who desires something of substance, of whatever the category might be. Here it's mentioned as fame, but tangible anything. That's the personality of Godhead. And then there's another category with subdivisions of that other category of persons that want something that's not tangible, fame or otherwise. And that's, the ephemeral. And there's a procedure. It's something like rather than explicitly saying this, it's something like the explicit statement that the Vedas are compared to a desire tree, kalpavriksha, and a desire tree is a very unique kind of tree. It provides everything. So most trees can't do that. Most trees, at best, they can produce something. Let's say a fruit tree. And they can produce a fruit of a certain type. But a kalpavriksha can provide, and it's only during a certain season. And a kalpavriksha, doesn't matter the season, doesn't matter what the fruit. A kalpavriksha, desire tree, can produce any amount of fruit at any time of the year, in any season, of any quantity. Similarly, the kalpavriksha of the Vedas has a major portion of Karmakanda division of the Vedas that says what this verse says. If you want this, you do this. If you want that, you do that. So there's procedures in the Karmakanda division. It's not, worship entails procedures and rules and paraphernalia and a qualified brahmana and fire and so forth. So, but the principle is worship of. And so there are personalities authorized to distribute this or that or the other part of the desire tree. So rather than listing, it's a long list. One who wants, there's a procedure. One who wants that, there's a procedure. Now, back to the question, what's that subject matter that one should hear, chant, and always remember? The messages of the personality of Godhead. So, for a regular reader of the Bhagavatam, it's pretty simple. It's very straightforward. It was heard again and again, so it's not like what's going on here. It's very clear. And one of the methods of education is to say, here's what it is and here's what it's not. Inclusive and exclusive. So this is the exclusive list, with the exception of tangible fame, worship the personality of Godhead, or tangible anything, personality of Godhead, because the previous chapter was dealing with Paramatma, the Lord in the heart. And the Lord in the heart process is not bhakti. The Lord in the heart process is dhyan. And dhyan is one part of the Ashtanga Yoga system, etc., but fixing the mind upon. But then comes the service to that entity who one has fixed one's mind upon. And then processes of that bhakti activities, those bhakti activities. And that's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What is bhakti made up of? So back again, this is describing what bhakti is not, because the title of the chapter is Pure Devotional Service, Change of Heart. So change of heart meaning transitioning from Paramatma to Bhagavan and serving him as the one's purpose of life. So the other purpose, meditation upon Vishnu within the heart, that's also arduous. And who knows how long and how difficult, and restraining the senses and all those things that are involved when properly executed, the Ashtanga Yoga system. It's not that restraining the senses is tossed to the wind, but the restraining the senses is made directly possible by bhakti itself. That is, for Krishna to be pleased, there's some do's and do nots, injunctions and prohibitions. There's vidhis and nishedhas, and you do the vidhi, you follow the vidhis, and you avoid the nishedhas, and that's controlled. The control is bhakti. The force of control is bhakti, so that Krishna is pleased, and avoiding that which is displeasing. And in the material world, it's real easy to displease others. What to speak of the Supreme Lord? It's real easy. It's like easy. Every day, throughout the day, and then the next day, and then our lifetime. Easy. So the other is, so it's the two things, effort and mercy. Two things. Effort, we strive. However, our striving is not effective. It's not fully effective. We've been hearing this in our evening class. Not fully effective. And not fully effective can be made fully effective by mercy, by blessings, and then the not fully effective can be effective. That which, if one is destined for something by past activity, karma, that karma can be changed by effort and mercy. And even especially important is mercy, even with or without the effort, by mercy. Krishna can change everything, even that which is not to be changed, karma that's not to be changed. We'll hear something about this tonight. Effort and mercy. Both. Not only one or only the other. Both. And the mercy givers are more than ready. However, we have to have our receivers on. And what does that mean? I'm not independent. I'm dependent. I'm subordinate. And I need the mercy of the independent, or those, taking the culture of human society, those that are superior to me. And then there's the consideration, well, who's superior and who's not superior, and all those nice things. But the more Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Das Das Anudas, being the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of, at way up there is the gopis. And then who are the gopis? It means the eternal associates of Krishna. It's a raga bhakti message. Serve the ragatmikas, and that's raga bhakti. That's Lord Chaitanya's teaching. But in any case, servant. They're the servant of the master. Now the gopis' master is Krishna in Vrindavan. So to serve, but the service goes to the gopis who are serving the master. But it's service to the master by serving the gopis. That's the teaching. You serve the servant, and you're serving the master. The master is pleased when the servant is properly respected and served. Krishna is pleased when he sees his devotees are properly respected and served. No question about it. Krishna is pleased. So that's a nice lifestyle. But, there's something required, and that's humility. And then humility that's guided by proper teaching from a proper teacher, because otherwise one can be foolishly humble or just foolish, humble or not. So the knowledge is needed, humility is needed, guidance is needed, and effort is needed, following all the above, and then mercy, effort and mercy. So change of heart requires that. I think I'm going to just end with this. Prior to the Vaishnav etiquette seminar that was conducted in Naperville, there were a few evening classes, and the few evening classes were going through the concluding sections of Kalyadamana. Yesterday evening here we heard, with the Chinese devotees, part 2, but when it gets to part 6, it's really interesting. I mean, it's really interesting. And there's the Leela, and then Krishna escapes from the hoods of the Kaliya serpent, and Krishna dances on the hoods of the Kaliya serpent, smashing, and he nearly dies from the smashing. And then he realizes within himself, this is not just a little boy in Vrindavan, this is the personality of Godhead, and he surrenders to him. Although he's smashed, he really can't do much, if anything. Then next, the wives of the Kaliya serpent rise with lotuses in their hand, and they offer prayers to Krishna, beautiful prayers. And the punchline of their beautiful prayers, beautiful means super transcendental. They went to a pretty good Gurukul, those ladies. They're very learned. They say a whole range of many things, glorifying Krishna. And one of the features of those prayers is the abode of contradiction. He's this and he's that. And they're contradictory. If you're this, they're not that. Whole series. And they understand it well enough to articulate it, and very beautifully. And then comes the end. And after having said, he's the abode of all contradictions. So one of the contradictions is our husband is suited for being punished. And then the contradiction is, yet you're the most merciful. So don't punish him anymore. One of your contradictory characteristics. Rather, if you dance more on his hoods, you may feel he needs, but if you dance more on his hoods, he'll die. He's about to die anyways. So a little more, he's finished. So please, A and B, release him and leave us protected. Don't kill him by dancing further, because we'll be then unprotected. So leave him, and if you want him to vacate, which is what Krishna wanted, then by all means. Because he's your pure devotee now, you've purified him. So they finished their prayers. And then it's Kaliya's turn to speak. And when it's Kaliya's turn to speak, he can't speak because his mouths are smashed. And his mind is out of sorts. So he doesn't, according to Sanatana Goswami, he doesn't speak anything very eloquent. He rephrases essences of some of the things that were spoken by his wives. But one of the things that he said that's very appropriate is because I didn't recognize who you were. Partly, I didn't recognize who you were because I'm in this snake body. And by nature, snakes are envious. And envy covers your ability to see properly. So I wasn't seeing who you are. Now that that envy has been removed, I can see who you are. And with that, he again says what his wife said. You're the supreme independent. You can deal with me whatever you like. You continue to punish me, or you can forgive me and relieve me of this burden of my past misdeeds, and lots and lots and lots, and long period of time of misdeeds, of bringing death to residents of Vrindavan. That's like murdering residents of Vrindavan is very serious business. So you can do with me whatever you like. It's full surrender. That's Mahaprabhu's teaching. You can do with me what you like. You can embrace me, you can neglect me, you can trample me, you can do with me whatever you like. But there's one thing. What's that one thing? Please engage me in your service. Please allow me to be in the association of your devotees and be engaged in your service. Now that's a desire. So desire isn't the problem. It's ignorance is the problem. And the root of ignorance brings many coverings, including envy. It's a very strong type of ignorance. There's it's just appreciating. There's symmetry in the Bhagavatam, and in different places, in different ways, in different language. The story is retold. The flow of the events of the story are different, but the principles are being illustrated in many different ways for the sake of clarification and also for the sake of repetition, so that we can really understand what the message is and how to achieve exactly what this chapter is: change of heart, pure devotional service. And the Bhagavatam is that sound vibration or literary incarnation of the Supreme Person, so that one can be carried away from the contamination and towards perfection, up to the stage of perfection. Perfection is like, is that possible for us? We're this and that and the other thing. Perfection? Is it attainable? And the answer is yes. But it effort and mercy. Same principle. So Prabhupada is saying that that there's the second verse of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, 112. Paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Satam, those who are thoroughly honest. Nirmatsaranam satam. They have taken shelter of Sat. This Bhagavatam is to help bring people to that position, and for those who are in that position, that is relishable, and exquisitely relishable by those who have that qualification. And if you don't have that qualification, it can bring you to that qualification. Perfect. I mean, that's what a gift that is. Perfection. And Krishna is giving, or through the medium of Vyasadeva, and then his son Shukadeva Goswami, this stage of perfection is being extended. It's, and who are we? It's such mercy for persons who are unqualified and tiny and distracted and wrongly directed, misguided. Kali Yuga folks. So it's rare to get that which is being offered, and how many people get the opportunity to get this message in this very clear way. And there are persons that are cheaters, and there are persons that they're cheaters, meaning they don't know, but they present themselves as if they know. And then they narrate Srimad Bhagavatam, the professional reciters. And they can't deliver the message of Srimad Bhagavatam properly, and people hear them. Or there's so many other mediums. Movies or comics or, portrayals of Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana that are just, they're not at all factual. But they're popular, and so people hear or become familiar with this version, that version. They think that's it. I had this experience in Naperville when I was there. I visited a program in Northern Illinois University, which is further north and west from Naperville. And there's a regular club there, and at the end of the presentation of this regular club, one fellow came forward with a question. And he said, why is it that when Ajamila uttered Narayana just 3 times, he achieved moksha? And I asked him, where'd you hear that one? He said, my grandfather. So he went on, his grandfather used to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam, his version. And I said, you're fortunate at the same time unfortunate, because you've understood something that's now putting a doubt in your mind. But that's not how it happened. Here's how it happened. I went through how it really happened, and then he just was stuck with what he had heard from his grandfather. It went 3 times around what my grandfather said. But that's not how it happened. Without all the details of how it did happen. So hearing from the wrong source is problematic, because then one has a conception, and one may practice or live or carry that conception by association. Same principle as in Bhagavad Gita. The mind carries different conceptions of life, like the air carries aroma. You hold a conception, and he has faith in his grandfather. His grandfather must have been very affectionate and learned person. So he looked up to him, and he heard from him, and that's it. The point is, it's how fortunate are we, who can say, to hear from the right source through disciplic succession. And there's a way for those who are a little experienced. The Bhaktivedanta purports are not his creation. He's, in simple language, restating something that's within the Bhagavatam verses itself, or our previous acharyas and our previous acharyas drawing upon other references from other Puranas, etc., or their personal experience and realizations of Krishna Leela and other Leelas. So Prabhupada just distilled it, sometimes referring where something was drawn from, so that there's the statement of authority behind what he says, and others not necessarily mentioning it. I'll give a little example, and then I'm going to end. Here's a little example. With grandfather Bhishma, there's two versions. What was his destination? Two versions. Those of us who read Srimad Bhagavatam, we know his destination was Vaikuntha. How do we know? Well, both the principle and the commentary. The principle is he had this power to leave his body only at will, and so he waited and waited for that auspicious moment when the sun started moving in the northerly direction. Otherwise, he was lying in his bed of arrows for a number of days. So at that auspicious moment, he was ready, and he desired, so Krishna came, and he asked Krishna, show your forearm form. So Krishna showed his forearm form. With his mind fixed on the forearm form, he left his body. So in principle, yam yam vapi smaran bhavab chachat ante kalevaram. You achieve that state which your mind is fixed on at the moment of death. By design, purposefully, he left his body seeing the forearm form of Krishna. So Prabhupada writes in his purport that he attained his eternal destiny of seeing Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Now, Prabhupada doesn't say, but Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, and therefore one could reasonably assume Prabhupada drew from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, saying that was his destination. Specifically, Parthasarathi is exactly what's said in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. So Prabhupada didn't always flag what his source was, but he did in simple language, so it made it, very smooth and palatable and easy. But that, it didn't change any of the teachings. He just made it really simply and easy for us. However, according to Mahabharata, there are different references. What's that? He achieved heaven because the Vasus are residents of heaven, just like is mentioned in this verse of the Vasus. One who wants power can worship the Vasus. So, the Vasus are denizens of heaven, and according to Mahabharata, Bhishma Dev previously was one of the 8 Vasus, because there's 8. And something happened, they tried to steal, the 8 Vasus tried to steal the cow of Vishishta, the Kamadhenu of Vishishta. So Vishishta cursed them. You take birth on earth. So the brothers, the 7 of the brothers, appealed and spoke very nicely and asked for reprieve. It wasn't anyway. He said, because you have appealed, then here's what's going to happen. You'll take a birth on earth, but you'll come back very soon. But that other fellow over there, he's the one that actually stole the cow, and tried to steal the cow. He'll stay for a long time, and then at the end he'll come back. Mahabharata narrates like that. So one says Vaikuntha, another says heaven. So then came the question. Which one is it? Now, previously, the answer that I was giving was there's different authority, and there's the Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest authority. Amala Purana, Amala Pramana. So that the superior trumps the inferior. There's another explanation which Jiva Goswami gives in Kramasandarbha, which says, although it says this in Mahabharata, there's also the statement in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where Narada Muni says, he makes a statement to Gopakumar about, Gopakumar, you've seen me in many places. You may be wondering, how's that possible? And the answer is, here's the answer, important. For the purpose of serving the Supreme Lord and his pastimes, I and others, and he names some names, can also appear in multiple places. One jiva manifests in multiple places for the purpose of serving the Supreme Lord in his leelas. So what kind of an expansion is that? Vishnu Tattva can expand, and Jiva Tattva can expand. It's not like multiple jivas of the same personality, because the jiva can't be split. The jiva can't be split. But it's something else that he doesn't say, Narada Muni doesn't say, and Jiva Goswami, in commenting on this, doesn't say in Kramasandarbha. But as happened with Narada and others, so with Bhishma. So Bhishma has his eternal place, and Bhishma, an expansion, became a Vasu, and then an expansion of the Vasu became Bhishma. But so he can be multiple places. He has his eternal abode, and he can be Bhishma, and then he can go to the heaven. He can be in multiple for the purpose of the Lord's Leela. Like, that's very complicated. But there is an explanation. So by dint of our acharyas, we don't know all these references, what to speak of, how do you stitch this one together with that one, with the other one. But they do, because they're not only smart, but they're empowered to be able to do things like that. They're empowered to understand that which the rest of us can't understand. Inconceivable is revealed to them. And then they can comment on it in their commentaries. So what am I doing? All of that is interesting. What's the purpose of that interesting series of sound vibrations? There's a mystery to the personality of Godhead and his pastimes. And according to Bhagavad Gita, one who can understand that mystery, Jaktva Deham Purnarjanma Na. To understand Krishna means no more birth. So to understand Krishna, how do you understand Krishna? There's only one way, and that's pure devotional service, and in association of those who are engaged in pure devotional service, and hearing from the right authority, then we can understand things, at least notionally, and then as we advance further, factually. That's the benefit. No more material. That's nirvana. No more material sojourning. Finished. That's how Prabhupada ends the purport. Back home, back to Godhead. Here's the last sentence. Intelligent persons should try to avoid these aspirations and seek instead the permanent life by returning home back to Godhead. Now, the permanent life of returning back home back to Godhead, as we discussed yesterday, It's not just a change of address. It's a change of consciousness, and that's what the chapter is. Change of heart, pure devotional service. That's back home, back to Godhead. Bhagavatam is nice, more than nice. It's very wonderful. As Krishna is all attractive, the Bhagavatam is Krishna and all attractive. Let's see if there's some discussion. $8.25. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned about the mind. Also, we have to put our effort and to receive the blessings. I was contemplating on that, and like how much sometimes our mind becomes exhausted. So how much it depends upon the situations and also for what we are trying to put the effort. But my question is, how not to feel that exhausting, or how the time frame that we can work on it. How do you understand that part?
Could you say it again? Because the language of your question is not clear. So, keep it simple. Okay. Keep it real simple.
So effort, and to receive the blessings, we have to put effort. So my question is that effort, when we are trying to put it, we become sometimes, our mind, feels so exhausted. So how do we
avoid being exhausted?
Yeah.
Well, it's simple. You're not the doer. If you think you're the doer, then it's easier to become exhausted. But if you're not the doer, you're the servant. And then you're looking to the master for the strength for the effort, including the effort, the direction of the effort and the purpose of the effort, but the strength. And the supplier of strength is endless. But so back to your question, if I'm thinking independent effort, that's when one can easily become exhausted at some point in time, at least. Even if one is very strong, one will become exhausted. And the opposite, or the antithesis of that kind of an effort, is while I'm making an effort, I'm depending upon the source of effort making, the source of everything. And then strength can come without feeling exhausted. From the start, the middle, and the end. And even if the blessings or the mercy or the what I'm seeking to achieve doesn't come, I'm still not feeling exhausted, because I'm heading in the right direction. At least that effort will be pleasing to the master, to the one who I want to serve, the master, Krishna. And then it's not exhaustion. It's pleasure.
So I should not have also expectation.
Well, you're adding to your question. No, you can expect mercy, and how that mercy comes is up to the merciful. That you can expect. That's a result you can expect. Krishna is kind. In the last few days, a message came from a devotee that for 30 years lived in a small apartment in New York City as a medical practitioner, kind of like a nurse or nurse's assistant kind of profession. And she's now retired. So while she was living in New York, she had a service that she liked very much. The president liked the service very much. She liked to bake, so she would bake cookies or different things. And then when they served out their Sunday feast, she was there personally giving each person on each plate something that she had baked and offered to her deities. And the president liked that, and everybody liked it, and so that for 30 years. She moved to a new place, and the new place doesn't want her doing that. I don't know why, but they have the reason, whatever the reason is. So, this is on the attachment to result. My advice to her, she's like not, she's accepting, but little disappointed and frustrated because 30 years of service that she really likes, and the devotees really like, and the president really liked, and it was 30 years, and now it's no longer there in this new situation. I'm sure there's a very good reason, maybe insurance or maybe who knows what, and the others don't want a risk, or whatever the reason is, but it's not being permitted. So Krishna's mercy can come in different ways. That was my response. Feel the blessings of Krishna's mercy, not like yay over there and boo over here. Just the Krishna's mercy and Krishna's mercy. So that to fill in the blank is now in this new situation where it's not this service, then what's another service? What's going to fill that space? That sense of satisfaction of serving the Vaishnavas. So, 30 years worth of X, then it becomes Y instead of X. Back to your question, what about, an anticipation or attachment to results? Whatever Krishna, the mercy of Krishna is the result.
Thank you.
Anything else? No.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So I was just, while you were giving the class, I was contemplating on Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So in Jnana Yoga, purification happens through Dhyana, and Jnana is what it is. And, and in Bhakti, purification happens through devotional service like described by Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and all those 9 stages of bhakti. And in jnana or dhyana, they attain Paramatma, whereas
in jnana what? Speak slowly.
In jnana, they attain Brahman realization or Paramatma
they may,
realization.
That's their aspiration. They may or may not. And they may. No? So, what's you're just contemplating and comparing the two.
Yeah, just comparing.
That's it.
Yeah, and so in Bhakti, we also do Kirtanam Japa. So in Japa, the purification happens, and the realization, like Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Bhavet. So so God gives, reveals Himself through different through different activities that we do, devotional activities we do.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And the degree to which He reveals Himself varies. But back to this expectation thing. Mercy we can expect. Krishna revealing Himself, that's up to Him. So progressively or incrementally or partially, or it's in His hand. That much we can expect. And then what beyond that? It's in his hand. That's the position of the devotee, of the bhakta. It looks like we're finished. Anything? Yeah.
Maharaj, thank you so much for the presentations that you've been conducting every evening and also today. Over the course of this visit, you've been mentioning a lot of qualities. So, like you mentioned, humility today, respect, and then freedom from trying to get rid of the envious nature and things. You were mentioning that we have to strive to the best of our ability to put in our best efforts. So my question to you is, there's so many qualities that keep coming up that a devotee should work on this. Exactly. If we had to, I guess, if there were just 5 really strong qualities, what would
How do you
be?
make a shorter list so I can focus?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Rupa Goswami's definition of definition of bhakti is the answer. And it's one thing, not 5 things. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. There's what bhakti isn't, that's the first part. There's what bhakti is. And it's, it's that Krishna should be pleased. That's the bhakti power that transforms ordinary into extraordinary, or material to spiritual, or from our position of bondage to the position of no longer under bondage. It's that Krishna is to be pleased. And then, so if you want a nice list, if you like lists, then the Sharanagati principles, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur has identified, and it's from the scripture, and he's written songs about it. There's accepting things favorable, rejecting things, there's subdivisions. But the power of each of those subdivisions is one thing. Krishna is to be pleased. There's love. The servant and the master, what does the master want? And align ourselves, let me align myself to what Krishna wants. And then as I read and associate, I'm tuned into what does Krishna want, and trying to realign my wants with what Krishna wants. And sometimes there's a good match, and sometimes not the best match. And it's good to recognize, where's the resistance. So you just stay focused on the one thing. Krishna is to be pleased. Making choices, both on the physical and the mental level, such that Krishna is pleased. Like we heard, for example, like we heard last night, the Shravan Kumar father, and some misfortune came. So why? So some mental offense, perhaps. Not properly respecting. He doesn't detail what does scripture say, what does proper respect of a Vaishnava mean. Doesn't give that detail, but it's a principle. So and that's pleasing to Krishna. Respecting a Vaishnava is pleasing to Krishna. That's you go just right to the top. Pleasing Krishna. And if you like, because if you want a little list, we heard yesterday evening there are these 2 things, envy and pride. But what are envy and pride are resting upon false ego. And they get the envy and pride get their strength from false ego. They're energized. They're the most subtle has the foundation. From the most subtle comes more grows, more grows, more grows. The whole of Sankhya unfolds from the most subtle false ego. All the elements and the mixture of the elements is resting upon false ego. Without false ego, we don't have the other 23 elements. They're resting upon the most subtle is the source, and the features of the mind, these two are most fundamental. Pride and envy. And then there's different manifestations of pride and different manifestations of envy. And though back to the one thing is Krishna should be pleased. That melts false ego, dissolves false ego. Bhakti dissolves false ego, and there isn't something else. So Krishna should be pleased, and exercise that muscle, that sadhana bhakti.
Maharaj, this is related to the topic of paying obeisances to spiritual master in temple in front of deities.
Yeah, what about it?
Yeah, so if my recollection is not wrong, and I apologize if I am misstating it, I remember hearing one pastime where one Mataji was offering arti to the deities,
Yeah.
and Srila Prabhupada entered the temple room.
Right,
He
right.
saw the arti, paid
Right.
obeisances,
Yeah,
went
yeah,
back.
I narrated that. It's
Yes, you know,
Rukmini.
Rukmani. Yeah, I was not knowing name. So how to, and she asked Prabhupada later, did I do the right? And he says, yeah, you did the right. So it's totally 180 degree.
There's a rule, and there's the exception to the rule. There's another rule. When you're chanting Gayatri, or when you're worshiping the deity, or when you're performing a yajna, or when you're doing a direct devotional activity for the pleasure of the Lord, you don't interrupt. That's the rule. The exception to the rule is when in comes, like, Brahaspati came into the middle. So, or this example of Rukmini. So it's the exception, and the exception is the rule is this, but, and then there's the exception. So just like last night, giving out the Mahaprasadam, everyone right after getting the Mahaprasadam, they paid obeisances in front of your deity. What to do? I said nothing.
So in case of Rukmani,
It's an exception to the rule.
yes. So so how to, like, what is the exception in that? Like, so I didn't understand the exception part. Like, how to discern that's exception is okay or not.
I don't understand your question. What makes an exception as what makes
Yeah.
the rule? That's your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. Rule is clear. It's mentioned in Shastra that it's a rule. But how that Rukmani Mataji stopping Arti and paying obeisances, that exception was okay exception.
Because the rule says this, and the exception says that. So now, how do you apply the exception? That's the question.
Yes.
You follow the rule. For example, for Vyasa Puja, for an initiation ceremony, the deity curtain is open. For a Vyasa Puja event, the deity curtain is closed.
So in this
You
case,
follow the rule.
yes, I got it. So in this case, like when the initiation is happening, so there can be I see that exception, known exception, like when initiation is there, deity curtain is open because you have to take blessing of deities.
Yeah.
Then
take
you
vow
pay
before the
obeisances
deities.
to spiritual master and read your vow. So that's like well-defined exception to the rule. But something prompt like Rukmani Mataji case, how do we know that, see that, what is a reference to that as a valid exception?
Well, she asked her guru, and her guru said. So that, and so what's the foundation? What was the scriptural basis of Prabhupada making this statement that this is an exception? You may or may not know what the rule is, but the instruction of the spiritual master is sufficient. No, you could ask the spiritual master, kind of like that's what you're asking. What's that scriptural reference that entitled Prabhupada to say, no, it was okay. You did the right thing. It seems like that's what you're asking.
Yes, like in this case, after the fact, Srila Prabhupada approved it as exception.
Well, she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But she did what she knew instinctively.
Yes.
She stopped ringing the bell, stopped waving the incense stick, set them down on the tray, got off the altar, paid obeisances, got back on the altar, and resumed the arti.
Yeah.
So she did the right thing.
Yes.
No. What's the scriptural basis for Prabhupada saying you did the right thing? Seems like that's what you're asking.
I mean, I'm not too much focused on that, but my main is, like for us, like yesterday, devotees paid offices after taking prasad.
It's because they don't know, and it's okay. So now, what you can do in the future, you don't have a curtain in front of your altar, but little. Okay, you have something. You put something up when that occasion might come, and so that people don't have to know why you're doing what you're doing, but you do.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna end. I'm gonna end. See the Prabhupada ki jai.